My ex-wife came out as lesbian and left me and my daughters 3 years ago. And now she's back. 3 years ago my wife came out as lesbian. We've been together for many years. In fact our oldest daughter was 14 at the time and my youngest was 10. Our life was good. Both me and my wife worked so we had stable finances and I thought we were happy. That was until one evening my wife sat us down and explained that she fell out of love with me, and realized she is gay. She explained how she was in love with a female colleague from her workplace and that she wants to be with her. She said she was sorry but she had to find out who she was and that would only be possible if she'd let her old life behind herself. The typical breakup nonsense. On that day she left us and cut the contact. For me and my daughters the world fell apart. I knew that I now had to take care of my daughters all by myself. I was in a state of depression for a long time but I kept fighting for my daughters. Every attempt to contact my ex-wife failed. Luckily I found a much better paying job that made it possible for me to give them the world. My daughters had good grades in school and I knew that our life would soon be better again. But once in a while when I took my youngest daughter to bed she asked if I would leave them like mom. I hugged her and gave her a kiss on the forehead and promised her that I would never leave them and that I love them more than anything in the world. I was so angry at my ex-wife because she was the one that gave her those feelings. I wonder if she ever realized what she had done to her daughters. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. My daughters and I sat in the living room and I told them that because Christmas month was already next month they should write down what they want for Christmas. My oldest daughter is now 17 and my youngest is now 13. While they were busy writing the doorbell rang and I wondered who it was. When I opened the door I froze in shock. It was my ex-wife with a big smile on her face. She said she was happy to see me and she tried to hug me but I refused to hug her. My oldest daughter then came up behind me and asked me who it was and when she saw her mother her face expression immediately changed. I've never seen her so angry. My ex-wife tried to apologize and she wanted to hug her but my daughter pushed her away and shouted at her to leave and that she never ever wants to see her again. Then my youngest daughter also joined us. She just got angry too, turned around and went to her bedroom. Then my oldest one followed her to comfort her. From the look on her face I figured she was ashamed as she should be. I asked what she wanted. She said that the last 3 years weren't good years for her. She constantly thought of her daughters and wanted to see them again but for some reason she never came by because she was expecting this exact response from them. But she guessed that she deserved this. She asked if I could talk to them. I told her that I could tell them she was sorry and let them decide but I will not push them into doing anything they don't wanna. She was okay with that and left. She also left me her new number to contact her. I then got into my daughter's room. She cried in the arms of her older sister. I told them what their mother has told me. I told them that if they'd want to meet her, they could do that. It would be okay for me. My oldest daughter said that she cannot forgive her for doing what she did and that I was everything they need. It was good to hear this. Really good. I always thought that being a single parent would mean that I might never be enough for my children. Hearing this made me so happy. My youngest daughter said I always thought I missed her, but now that she is in front of me I never want to see her again. I texted my ex-wife about that. She read it but she didn't respond. But she didn't give up that easily. She showed up at our house once more while my daughters played ping pong outside. I was in the living room watching TV when I suddenly heard loud shouting outside of the house. I immediately got there and I saw my oldest daughter arguing with my ex-wife. My oldest daughter shouted at her that she had no idea what she did to me. She told her about how depressed I was and everything I went through. This was kind of surprising because I wanted my daughters to feel secure with me so I've never told them of my depression and the suffering I went through. Then she continued how she felt over the years knowing that her mother left her and that she'll never forgive her. My 13-year-old was crying while it happened so I hugged and comforted her but I also don't want to interfere because if my oldest daughter wanted to tell her mother anything I'm not gonna stop her. Just to protect my ex-wife's feelings. Overall she never cared about her feelings either. After she was done she came hugging me as well and I told my ex-wife she should leave us alone. If she ever showed up here again, we get a restraining order. She left with tears in her eyes. Well that was 3 days ago and she hasn't showed up again so far. I just hope she leaves us alone. My daughters made it very clear they don't want to have anything to do with her. I wanted to give them the opportunity to meet their mother again because if there is any chance that my children have a mother again I don't want to stay in their way. Tomorrow I'm breaking off my engagement. I found out my fiancé cheated with her boss. I'm not sure of his age, but he's in his mid-40s, while she was 24 and I'm 25. I also know he's married and he has 3 kids. This happened last November on a work trip while out of town. They made love 3 times. How do I know? Well, her boss's wife messaged me on Facebook and told me, and provided me with dozens of screenshots of texts and emails between them, graphic discussions about how they cheated on us. And how they got over on us and they joke about it. But then she'll tell him in the same texts that she loves me so this can never come out. The boss's wife, who seems very sweet, I've met her at company functions before, is also enraged and heartbroken and is having him serve with divorce papers tomorrow. She's also going to drop a friendly email to their HR department. So I'm sitting here on my phone typing this, and she's across from me on the sofa using her computer, planning a honeymoon trip for a wedding she has no idea is never going to happen. She's completely oblivious to the fact that her life is going to fall apart tomorrow. I don't feel any sympathy at all since mine fell apart last week and every time I read those texts and emails I feel like someone is impaling my heart. 3 years down the drain. I'm just thankful I found out before we got married. I guess there's that to be thankful for. She has no idea but I took a vacation day tomorrow. After she leaves for work I'm going to go around my place and collect up all her stuff, box it up and have it sitting by the door. Then I have to figure out if I can get any of the money I've already laid out for the wedding back. It was supposed to happen in October but yeah, that's not happening. And when she comes home I'm going to throw her out of my apartment and out of my life. I've debated posting all those screenshots on her Facebook page, but my sister talked me out of it. I also debated calling her parents. I feel bad for them as they are such great people and I'm going to miss her family. They've accepted me as one of their own and I don't know what they're going to say, but I've decided that she can explain herself to them. I don't want to hear her excuses or her lies. At this point I just want her out of my life so I can figure out what the hell I'm going to do with the rest of my life. Update. While I cannot believe the response this post has gotten, I can safely say the bomb has dropped. Around 8 or so my phone started going nuts. Calls from her with voicemails after each call. I knew right away what was going on, so I immediately called my sister to tell her that it was happening. She told me to stay strong and if I wanted her to she would come to my place and sit with me, so she's doing that. Then I had a very difficult phone conversation with my ex's mother. Jesus, I can't believe I have an ex now. Difficult because this woman has done nothing to deserve the pain I could hear in her voice. Her whole family has been nothing but accepting of me since day one. I calmly as I could explained the situation to her mother and told her that I can't find it in myself to forgive this and that I'm going to be asking her to move out. Although she was very upset, her mother seemed to understand why I feel this way. She offered as well to come to my place and help my ex get her things. I think this is a pretty good idea. Then I texted a few of my closest friends about this situation. I've been getting bombed with texts from them since but have said as soon as I can I will talk to them, but right now I'm completely overwhelmed. I listened to one voicemail from my ex and it was what I expected, crying and asking me to call her because we really need to talk. I called her back and she didn't answer, so I started to text her when she called me. Immediately she's telling me how sorry she is. Why did I call her mom? Why did I involve other people? So I lost it and asked how she thinks I feel having to go get tested for STDs because my fiancé cheated on me. Do you know how embarrassing that is? So at least she didn't deny what she did. I told her she needs to come this afternoon and get her stuff out of my place. That we are finished, she said. We'll talk more later, but I cut her off and said there's not a whole lot to talk about, is there? I also asked her how her and this guy could talk shit about me and his wife, like they made fun of her for gaining weight after having 3 kids. This poor woman didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve this. I also said something to her about not trying to say she felt pressured because the guy is her boss. Her texts show clearly that she was a more than willing participant in all this. I guess she's got to meet with HR at work today and the whole place is gossiping about the two of them. I can't feel sorry for either of them at this point. I'm already emotionally drained and it's not even 10 a.m. where I'm at. So once she's done with her HR meeting, I guess she's going to come here and get her stuff. I'm hoping it goes without much drama. My sister should be here and I hope her mom comes with her. My landlord also says she'll be around and she's also going to have my locks changed hopefully either this afternoon or tomorrow. I know this is like a long babbling post but I was trying to remember a lot of things I said and my mind is raving right now.
My brother-in-law gave my disabled little sister a brutal reality check which caused her to have a breakdown. My parents have 3 kids, Maya, me, and Sally. The problem is Sally. When she was born she had some form of medical condition which led doctors to believe that she wouldn't survive at all. But my parents never gave up. They spent all their money and time for her treatment and a miracle happened. She survived but now has brain deformities which impede her ability to socialize and she is completely unaware of anything, but she is alive. Since then they have coddled Sally to death. Sally always had to have the best things, and I had all the hand-me-downs, which I didn't mind, but it sucks that I was the forever neglected middle child. But my sister Maya took most of it. Maya was the oldest and the scapegoat. For some weird reasons, Sally was always in competition with Maya, and I am sure my parents also pitted them against each other too. Maya was always supposed to behave and never complain, while Sally was a brat. If Maya had a dollhouse, Sally had a bigger dollhouse. If Maya did something good, my parents would just say good job and go on about their life. But if Sally even won a participation trophy, they would basically throw a party. Since then, Maya has been walking on eggshells around my parents. She would always be grounded and we cannot even complain that Sally has been bullying us because she is a special child. Sally was also awful towards me. She would often abuse me and even steal my stuff and my parents won't do anything. And like I mentioned, Sally was always in competition with Maya. If Maya wanted to participate in music, she would too. I remember Maya saying in high school that she has a crush. What does Sally do? Make out with that crush in front of Maya. My parents didn't even save enough for college for either of us, but luckily for Maya, she got on scholarship. I had to take out a loan. The last straw for Maya was when she was dating this guy in college. She brought him home when they were on vacation. She caught Sally and him doing the deed in the basement. It was a shitstorm. My parents did berate Sally, but after a few days they were like, what happened just happened. It will be wrong to separate these lovebirds. That was it for Maya. She screamed at them that she has endured their abuse for all these years, but not anymore. She cut off contact. There was a lot of tension. Some of my uncles and aunt were divided. Sally was just as shameless as she was and went on to date Maya's ex. Maya eventually got over it and met a nice guy and got married. She did invite our parents, but not Sally. My parents didn't go, but I did. Now she is currently pregnant with her first child. My parents reached out to her and although Maya was skeptical, she agreed to reconcile. So, our family has this big dinner once a year at their place where all the relatives and cousins are invited. Maya came along with her husband, Adam. Sally was also there with her husband, Maya's ex. Throughout the evening I noticed Sally tried to be closer to Adam, but he would just shove her off. When it was time for dinner, my parents made a toast. Then Sally stood up and said that she was so lucky to be here and that she almost died when she was young, something she has said over and over for pity. She then redirected to Maya and said, "Sis, I know it must be hard for you because your ex is now my husband, but thanks for the blessing. I know it must be hard for you to be here knowing how hard it was for you to compete with me, but I applaud your bravery. This was the moment Adam stood up and shouted at Sally, saying how dare she insult his wife. Who does she think she is? Then the word vomit started. I am just paraphrasing it. You think you are so special because you were a miracle baby. Guess what? I was a miracle baby too, but I don't scream about it like you do. You are such a pathetic woman that the only achievement in your life you have is something that was accidental. What else do you have to show for? Everything you have was basically borrowed from my wife. Even your pathetic husband who spent the entire evening hitting on every female cousin in this room. You are so annoying even your husband doesn't like you. You know what the truth is? You have nothing and you're nothing. You are so shameless and pathetic that you tried to hit on me. You already got her ex and now you want her husband. I would rather die than be with a woman like you whose personality is worth a paper bag. You have always been jealous of my wife because you always knew you would never be as amazing as she is. That's why you stole from her, because that's the only way you could have what she has. Sally was in tears.
My wife cheated and it went horribly wrong for her. Me and my wife just moved into a big city to start new jobs. Life was generally pretty good. We were in love, had love making regularly and never really argued too much. But everything changed when my wife met Jane at work. Jane worked directly with my wife and was the person she had the most contact with at work. They quickly became friends and initially I was happy she found someone she gets along with so quickly and can go out for drinks. But then it started to go downhill. Jane started trying to convince my wife that I was holding her back, that monogamy is no longer needed by women who have jobs, and that she should be hooking up with men way more conventionally attractive than me. I didn't know all this was going on until after, as mentioned at the start. Jane would always go on about my height. I am 5 feet 8 inches, and how I'm not traditionally masculine. I saw texts between them after the fact and Jane was describing the feeling of being with a more masculine man, how it's something every woman should experience, and asking my wife about me and how dominant I am. Granted, I am not the most dominant guy in the bedroom, but I would be more than happy to do so if my wife had discussed this with me. This went on for months. At this point Jane was full on trying to convince my wife that I'm not good enough for her. She had learned from my wife things that I have supposedly done wrong and would labor on those points. For example, how I was unable to fix her car and had to call someone so she was late for an important meeting. I am not a mechanic, but apparently men know how to fix cars. She was sending my wife content and podcasts to watch about relationships and women's needs in a relationship. Eventually, my wife started being reciprocal to Jane. This is when Jane upped the ante, started calling me horrible names to do with my height, and my wife just went along with it. From here, Jane moved on to her second stage. She introduced her to a guy, a traditionally masculine guy who was tall and muscular and supposedly better than me. So my wife was talking with him, started off platonic, but soon progressed to flirting, and eventually full-on love-making texting. Won't go into what he said, but it was extremely detailed in what he would do to my wife. Unlike the woman I thought I knew, she seemed to love it, and they eventually began arranging to hook up. This is where things began to unravel for my wife. She was extremely stupid and booked a hotel using our joint card. I asked her about it and she said it was for work. I said, why on earth do you need a hotel 10 minutes away for work? She had not prepared for this and was like a deer in headlights. She said the company are having drinks there and people booked rooms to stay the night. I could tell she was lying. I assumed given everything Jane has been telling her, she expected a guy like me to just roll over and not even question it. Now I was suspicious. A few days later when she was asleep I went through her phone and connected WhatsApp to my computer so I could have a proper look without her knowing. This is where I discovered all those messages. I didn't really know what to do at this point, but the day of the hotel stay rolled around and I decided I had to confront her. So I did, and she wasn't even apologetic. In fact, she said it is what she has needed for years and it may actually help our marriage. I told her if she walks out that door we are done. And she left after basically saying she doesn't care right now cause she's got him waiting for her. I didn't see my wife for the next 3 days. I resisted the urge to call her or beg her to come home, and was trying my hardest to go along with it. Then I got a call. It was from her company's HR department. They wanted me to go in for a meeting. When I arrived I sat down with 2 HR staff, and I guess one of the managers. They explained that I'm here as I need to be told as part of an ongoing investigation. That I have been spoken about using work communication systems and that the result of this was a huge fight between 2 employees. I was very confused and asked who the fight was between. They said my wife and Jane. They could sense I was even more confused and said that they will explain everything. Long story short, after my wife left that night the guy didn't show. My wife then found out that the guy she had been cheating on me with was not actually a guy, it was Jane catfishing her. When my wife found out, she was at work and there was a huge fight, hence why I was there now to answer some questions. And that's the reason I said I can't believe this happened. My wife is now unemployed and has lost her husband because she got catfished. Crazy. She did get back in touch but it went how you might imagine. I may do an update if interested. My wife's surprise stopped me from committing the biggest mistake of my life. I'm 33 and my wife is 29, we have been together for 6 years and married for 2. She has a childhood friend Dave who's dating Tessa who is also my colleague. All of us are in the same department and I was the one who set them up. My wife and her friend Dave call themselves soulmates. Although I've never had any problems with Dave as I trust my wife and my wife isn't the one to cheat, they have been super close for the past 3 weeks. It's up to the point they were whispering into each other's ears and would start giggling to each other. Every time I'd ask her what's funny, she'd just casually shrug and shoo me away saying it's a secret. She'd whisper talk to him in the other room which she never used to do, and she's been visiting his cafe very frequently because Dave owns and runs a cafe. The 4 of us go on double dates from time to time and there's also the same situation. They just talk to themselves in signs, smile knowingly and then start acting normal when they'd see me and Tessa watching them. I knew for sure that it bugged Tessa too. Also, me and my wife used to have a very healthy love life which decreased from several times a week to once/twice a week. All these weird things and her staying away from me and keeping secrets really strengthened my suspicions. Last week my department had to go on a business trip for 5 days. It was pretty far away from our city and I had informed my wife about this 3 days prior. She seemed upset at first but later after a quick visit to Dave's cafe, she returned back home with a smile. And that upset me more. Also that night, I overheard her and Dave talking and planning to go somewhere together. She was surprised to see me there and cut the call abruptly and I acted like I didn't hear a single thing even though I was absolutely fuming and plotting inside. I went on the trip as casually as I could with Tessa and 2 other colleagues. Our company had provided us with separate rooms with room service. My mind was filled with revenge plans and I decided that if she, my wife, was enjoying herself then why couldn't I a little? The city we went to is famous for its nightlife so my plan was to complete my work for the day and go out and most possibly bring a girl to our room and you all know what would be next. So I completed my work, changed into casuals, checked out and went to the bar. I could see some girl eyeing me in my peripheral vision and I took it to be my to-go moment. As I was about to approach my would-be AP, I was distracted by a bunch of